For centuries, millions of Indians have been trapped at the bottom of Hindu society. In a system that considers them barely human, Dalits have been forced to do the jobs no one else will, and face violence, even rape and murder, just because of the caste they were born into. But now, Dalits are saying, enough is enough. I'm Steve Chow. On this episode of 101 East, we go inside the protest movement, threatening to shake the foundation of Indian society.
India's caste system started as an ancient Hindu way of dividing labour, keeping people in strict social classes they can never leave. Even in today's India, those at the bottom, the Dalits or untouchables as they're known, remain excluded from opportunity and are seen by most upper caste Indians as virtually subhuman.
They have always treated them like inferior people, or they have treated them like animals, or people who are more like slaves.
For centuries, Dalits have been restricted to the lowest, dirtiest jobs, from handling rubbish and human waste to removing dead animals, including India's sacred cows, taking their carcasses off the street and skinning them for leather. In his village in northern Gujarat, Jayesh Chauhan labours 10 hours a day to earn just a few dollars.
બીજો કોઈ રસ્તો નહીં ઓના સિવાય અમને કોઈ બીજો કામ ધંધો હાલે નહીં બરાબર કોઈ મજૂરી હાલે નહીં છે કે અમે ચમાર છીએ બરાબર છે એટલે આ રે ધંધો અમને ફાવે બીજો કોઈ ધંધો કરવા જઈએ તો અમને કોઈ મેળ ના થાય બીજો કોઈ કામ ધંધો મળતો નહીં અમારી ગાડીમાં કોઈ બેહે નહીં બીજો ધંધો કરવા જઈએ તો કોઈ બેહે નહીં કે પછાત વર્ગના રોજગાર મળતો જ નહીં કોઈ ઊંચી કુંવાળા અમને ટકવા જ ના દે.
Jayesh has two daughters. He feels discrimination against Dalits will also deny them the chance of a better life.
જાતિકરણના ભવિષ્ય વાત સાચી છે અમે બધી રીતના છોડીઓ ભણાવવા માગીએ બધું છે પણ ઊંચી કક્ષામાં આ પીછી પાછા વર્ગની છોડીઓ એટલે અમને નહીં ભણાવતા હોવાની આગળ કોઈ સરકારી સહાયતા ના મળે આ ના મળે પછાત કુંભમાં કહેવાય આપણે બીસીમાં એટલે આ છોડીઓને 10મું 12મું ભણવા દે પછી આગળ નહીં ટકાવારી મળતી કોઈ નોકરીઓ ના મળે.
Despite the difficulties, some Dalits do manage to get an education. People like Rajni, a cow-skin trader. Using a scheme which reserves some places for Dalits in university, Rajni graduated as a computer scientist. But he says no one will give him a job in that field because he is a Dalit. Do you have a choice? Could you do another job? Or is this the only job you could do successfully?
I want, but I cannot do that.
You cannot. Why?
Because caste is problems.
As Rajni shows me, caste is more than just a problem. It can be dangerous. These are Dalit cow skinners in southern Gujarat being attacked by an upper caste gang, accusing them of killing a sacred cow. And it's not the only attack like this. 1 month later, in the nearby Gujarati town of Una, another attack is caught on camera. The attackers were so-called cow vigilantes, extreme right-wing Hindus who accused the Dalits of killing a cow they were skinning. So they beat the Dalits at the site. The men denied killing the cow, saying they were just doing their job. They were then taken to the town centre, where they were again brutally beaten and humiliated in public outside the police station. But there was an unintended consequence. Using social media, Dalits quickly shared these videos across the country, sparking outrage and mass protests. Activists such as Jignesh Mavani, himself a Dalit, found their voice and a platform.
Environmental impact assessment की जो प्रावधान थी वो भी निकाल दिए गए हैं तो आने वाले दिनों में दलित आंदोलन किसान और मजदूर आंदोलन के साथ भी जुड़ेगा.
He became an activist after learning of the problems fellow Dalits face while he was studying politics and economics at university.
Every day in India, 4.3 Dalit women are raped. Every day in India, 2 Dalits are killed. Every day, crime against a scheduled caste person, against a Dalit is committed every 18 minutes. Houses of the Dalits are burnt almost every 2-3 days. And if you see the rate of conviction in Gujarat, the rate of conviction is just 3%. So if 100 offences are registered against dominant caste people for subjecting Dalits to some sort of violence and brutalities, 97 would get away.
As a result of these Una beatings, thousands of Dalits refused to skin any more dead cows. But in the village of Khaja, the Dalit refusal to collect a dead cow provoked upper caste anger and yet another act of violence.
In another case of atrocities against Dalits, a Dalit family, including a pregnant woman, was beaten up in a North Gujarat village over their refusal to remove the carcass of a cow. The police have arrested 6 people in connection with the assault. The victims were abused and assaulted by the accused, who belong to the dominant upper caste community in Banaskantha district. Dalits in Gujarat have given...
Sangeeta Ranavasiya was among those attacked.
A pregnant woman, Sangeeta, she has been admitted here at the civil hospital in Palanpur. In fact, Friday when this incident...
I was asleep at home on the bed. They grabbed me by the hand and threw me onto the floor. Then they kicked me hard in the stomach. I started bleeding straight away, and then I passed out.
Fearing more violence, Sangeeta and her husband fled the village, but she remains haunted by the brutality of the attack.
The doctor said that the child's head has been severely hurt, that there is a swelling from the kick. It doesn't matter what happens to me, but what will happen to my child? Everyone in the village knew I was pregnant, but they still came to our house and attacked us. Did they think that if they attacked us, that we would stop? That if you beat a pregnant woman, that we would stop refusing to remove the carcasses?
The attack on Sangeeta and her family was not an isolated incident.
The father was brave enough to register a complaint because...
Manjula Pradeep runs Navsajan, a Dalit rights and advocacy group dealing with hundreds of attacks every year. She showed me a video of one recent incident. An upper caste mob had attacked this woman for allegedly using water from a village well that Dalits are not allowed to use. In a second video, Manjula shows me the burnt-out shell of a Dalit house.
This is the house of the Dalit man who was burnt alive.
The Dalit man was accused of helping an upper caste girl in a marriage dispute with her family. The upper caste mob, led by the village headman, locked him in the house and set it on fire.
When the Dalits they start asserting for the rights, there is violence because it creates a kind of a tension and fear in the minds of the dominant caste, where they feel that now their privileges, their power is being breaking down, and the dominance is also reducing.
The next day we joined Manjula as she went to a village where there'd been a development in yet another attack.
This is the place where in 2012, on 22nd and 23rd September, 3 Dalit youth were killed by police in the firing.
Manjula says one of the young men was shot point blank by a police officer and 2 more were killed the following day when police fired into a crowd of protesting Dalits. For 4 years, Manjula has been working with parents of the dead boys, trying to get the state to properly investigate the police officers accused of killing their sons. They say the public prosecutor has now told them they are no longer investigating the actual alleged shooting. Valjabai is the distraught father of one of the boys. He just wants the police to release an internal report on the incident, but they refuse, saying it's not in the public interest to do so.
બેમાંથી એક રસ્તો સરકારનો, કાં તો રિપોર્ટ અમારા જે ડોક્યુમેન્ટ છે એ કમ્પ્લીટ આપે, આપણે તો એ જ માંગણી મૂકી રહ્યા છીએ, એના સિવાય તો સરકાર પાસે બીજી કોઈ ભીખ નથી માંગતા. જો સરકાર આ ન આપતી હોય તો ઈચ્છા મૃત્યુ આપો.
His son Mehul was just 16 when he was killed. Valjabai says police have now told him there was no killing.
कि यहाँ कुछ बना नहीं था, लेकिन मेरा लड़का कहाँ गया? અહીં कुछ बना ही नहीं है तो मेरा लड़का कहाँ गया? बस उसका पता दे दो हमको.
શું કામગીરી કરી, થોડી વાત તો કરો.
All three families believe that had the boys not been Dalits, they would not have been killed and there would have been a proper investigation.
120% में ऐसा कह रहा हूँ, 100% से ऊपर 120% ऐसा कह रहा हूँ कि मेरा लड़का दलित था, मैं दलित हूँ, इसीलिए तो ये नहीं हुआ है. अगर कोई ब्राह्मण का लड़का को मार दिया होता तो उसकी एफआईआर कैसी होती वो तब पता चलता. अगर कोई दरबार को मार दिया होता तो उसकी एफआईआर कौन आरोपी है उसको तुरंत धरपकड़ किया जाता है, नहीं किया जाता है, उसका चांस क्या होता है, नहीं होता है.
Police have told the High Court their internal investigation is still ongoing. Meanwhile, a father's sense of loss is deepened by his inability to get justice for his dead son.
कोई ऐसा होता है आदमी कि उसको बेटा को ताबले लगा के कहता है कि बेटा तू आगे बढ़, तो लड़का भी ऐसा कहता था कि पापा मैं आगे बढ़ रहा हूँ, मैं आपको ऐसा आगे बढ़ के नाम दूंगा कि मैं वालजी भाई का पुत्र हूँ. उनसे ज़्यादा मैं अब नहीं कहना चाहता हूँ. ठीक है.
Tired of this injustice, Dalits across India are now taking matters into their own hands in an unexpected way. These Dalits have gathered for a rally to celebrate an anniversary of a towering figure in their struggle. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar was a Dalit whose life was an extraordinary exception to the normal Dalit experience. He rose to chair India's Constitutional Committee at independence. He enshrined special rights for Dalits in a modern India and urged them to throw off the burden of caste by taking one deeply controversial step.
This rally has a carnival atmosphere, a very joyous occasion, but the message is absolutely revolutionary for Indian society. What they're saying is, to Dalits, you can escape 3,000 years of what they see as caste oppression by leaving Hinduism and becoming a Buddhist.
Dalits leading the rally insist Buddhism offers freedom because they say Dalits have no land, no jobs and no chances.
We are organizing to make a power so that we can stand up on our feet. Yes.
Among those drawn to the message is 24-year-old Hasmukh, who's been refused well-paid jobs because he's Dalit.
गुस्सा भी कभी कभी लगता है कि जैसे कोई हमको ऐसे बोल देता है कि तुम दलित हो, ये है वो है सब कुछ, तो गुस्सा भी लगता है क्योंकि हम इंसान नहीं है क्या, हम भी तो इंसान है ना, सब इंसान एक जैसे ही होते हैं, ये तो धर्म तो इंसान ने ही बनाया है सब.
The rapid social media sharing of incidents such as the Una beating is galvanizing Dalit youth.
परिवर्तन है, आज के युवाओं में बहुत सारा परिवर्तन है, वो लोग अब सब वो सहन करने वाले नहीं हैं, जो पहले बहुत सहा है सब लोगों ने, वो अब वो लोग सहन करने वाले नहीं हैं, उससे आगे बढ़ने वाले हैं.
It must be very difficult to leave that religion. What's the hardest thing about leaving it?
ऐसा तो कोई मुश्किल नहीं है, क्योंकि जो धर्म में हमारा कोई महत्व ही नहीं है, वो धर्म को छोड़ने में कोई मुश्किल नहीं होनी चाहिए, इसलिए मुझे कोई मुश्किल नहीं है ये धर्म छोड़ने के लिए.
Dalit activist Jignesh Mavani is also here today. He thinks even converting to Buddhism is not enough to protect Dalits from violence. What do people face if they convert to Buddhism culturally?
They are attacked. There have been cases when Dalits have converted from Hinduism to Buddhism. They are actually physically attacked, abused, discarded, rejected, socially boycotted from the villages.
He believes Buddhism can be a useful first step, but says Dalits need far more for real change.
Assume for the sake of argument that I'm a landless farm laborer. I'm getting 120 rupees for the toiling of 8 hours. And tomorrow morning if I turn to Buddhism, will it going to change my economic position? If my application for housing or shelter is pending, will it get cleared? If I'm a landless, will I get the land? If I'm severely exploited in a factory, will I be able to get out of the clutches of the owner? The answer is big no. Fighting against economic untouchability is something different.
To see what economic untouchability means, we went with Jignesh to a remote rural area. Jignesh is here to meet dozens of Dalit farmers. Government reforms promise to give all Dalits a 2-acre plot of land, and many here were given land on paper. But upper caste landowners and local officials have refused to enforce the order.
Here's a similar case.
Land in their name would help them lift their families from generational poverty. But many of these men were given the land on paper decades ago.
એટલે અમારી વિનંતી કે ભાઈ આ ખાતે હોય જમીન ખાતે જમીન હોય અમારે ખાતે તો કોઈ માણસ આગળથી પૈસા લઈ શકીએ અમે અત્યારે આપણી આગળ કોઈ વસ્તુ છે નહીં તો કોઈ આપણને આપી શકે નહીં તો આપણા છોકરા કાંઈ કરી શકતા નથી
હું એ જ કરું તમારી જોડે રહીને તમારે એ જ કરવાનું છે. When it comes to Dalits and when it comes to poor landless Dalits and when it comes to their land rights, authorities go into deep slumber and there is complete thorough carelessness. This is a nationwide phenomena. Everywhere, if you see the implementation of the land reforms policy, you will find this kind of cases. Lands are allotted only on paper.
Jignesh has already organised one sit-in forcing government officials to heed the demands of these men. But months later, the land is still not theirs, so he's back to mobilise the next action and take it back to the courts.
રોડ ઉપર આવીએ અને સંઘર્ષ કરીએ અને સરકાર અને અધિકારીઓને વાંકા પાડીએ અને કામ ચાલુ થાય એ ખરું.
But this is a dangerous course. Dalits who agitate for their rights are increasingly the victims of upper caste violence.
The upper caste people can't tolerate that. They just simply can't take it. How a Dalit can dare to raise his constitutional rights? So they just can't take it.
So they respond with violence?
Yeah, we respond with violence, all kind of violence.
There are 170 million Dalits in India, almost 16% of the population. Many live in remote villages, disconnected from urban political movements. We've come to this village to meet a Dalit elder. Dalpat Bhai wants to show me how they remain segregated wherever they live across the country.
ये दलित मोहल्ला है, वहीं रहेंगे. ये दलित मोहल्ला वही सीमित है, वो बीच में आगे वाला दलित मोहल्ला वही सीमित है. मानो कि अदर कास्ट में इनको ये मकान अदर कास्ट को बेचने का है, मगर वो दलित नहीं खरीद.
How does that make you feel?
हाँ, तो वो में तो दिल में से बहुत दुख होता है कि जातिवाद अभी तक चल रहा है, मनुवाद अभी तक चल रहा है. हमें जो
To escape these constraints, Dalpat Bhai has decided to become a Buddhist and is organising a mass conversion ceremony for other Dalits as well. But there's a problem. Government officials refuse to give them permission to hold the ceremony. So today he's travelling for an urgent meeting with other Dalits to work out what they can do. Why do you think the government hasn't given you permission to use this place?
हाँ, सरकार पे भी राजकीय प्रेशर है। वो जो अभी सरकार चला रहे, इनका सरकारी ऊपर से प्रेशर है कि दलित कम्युनिटी धर्म परिवर्तन ना करे, तो प्रेशर के हिसाब से वो सरकार भी परमिशन नहीं दे रही।
Dalpat tells me the central government opposes conversions because it's run by right-wing Hindu nationalists trying to protect their voter base. But many of these Dalits have had enough. 20-year-old student Niraj has drawn up pamphlets with details of the imminent ceremony. He's been motivated by his own experience of discrimination, which started when he was very young.
First time मैंने ये प्रॉब्लम फेस किया कि मैं पहली कक्षा में पढ़ता था, तो मैं गांव की स्कूल में टंकी से पानी नहीं पी सकता था, तो मैं घर से पानी पी के स्कूल जाता था और सुबह पी के जाता था और शाम को पीता था पानी।
वास्तव में तिलक के नेतृत्व में समाज सुधारक विरोध गुट
एजुकेशन पे अत्याचार होते हैं, जैसे कि खानगीकरण कर दिया सरकार ने स्कूलों का, तो दलित लोग और जो नीची जाति के लोग कहते हैं यहाँ से, तो वो पैसे उनके पास नहीं है, तो उनके बच्चों को अच्छा एजुकेशन नहीं दे सकती।
Niraj has also seen his father Amarabai struggle all his life against the curse of their caste.
અમને તો અનુભવ એવો ઘણો બધો થાય છે કે આ જે જાત છે અમારી જે કુમ છે એ કઈ રીતે થી અને અમારે અત્યારે આ બધું વેઠવું પડે। અમે અમારી જાતને ધિક્કારીએ છીએ કે માલિકે આ જે આપી અમારી જાત, એ જાત આપી એ જ અમને બહુ તકલીફ છે।
Amarabai supports his son's activism, but worries his children will face social problems like finding someone to marry. Niraj also knows that converting won't solve problems immediately.
बुद्धिज़्म अपनाने से मेरी लाइफ में ये चेंज आएगा। मेरी लाइफ में अभी तक कुछ चेंज नहीं आएगा, पर जो हमारी आने वाली पीढ़ी है उसमें ये नहीं रहेगा कि हम वो है, वो किसी भी कास्ट के साथ एक मिलकर रहेगा, पर आने वाले जो पुख्ते हैं उसको ये नहीं रहेगा कि हम चमार है वो है।
Finally, the big day has arrived. Dalpat Bai and Niraj have succeeded in securing a location for their Buddhist conversion. The local media want to know why anyone would want to consider leaving Hinduism. Plainclothes police are also here taking the details of everyone involved. Dalpat Bai says officials tried 3 times to have this cancelled, but their determination won. The ceremony begins. First, they must agree to follow the 5 principal precepts of Buddhism, and then to disavow the Hindu gods.
आज मुझे लग रहा है कि मैं कई सालों से ये मानव की ज़िंदगी नहीं जी रहा था। आज से मुझे लग रहा है समानता बंधुता से जी रहा होगा, सम्मान से जी रहा होगा, मेरी इज्जत होगी, तो ऐसा लगता है मेरा पुनर्जन्म हुआ है।
200 Hindu Dalits converted here in this small town. But in the cities, many more are also making this dramatic change. Last December, in the city of Nagpur, more than 5,000 Dalits converted. Activists expect the numbers will increase as more Dalits reject their place at the bottom of Hindu society. Even those Dalits who choose to remain Hindu are no longer willing to remain silent. 1 million Dalits took to the streets in this protest, demanding the same rights as other Indians. They want an end to the violence and discrimination they face just because of the caste they were born in.
Across India, if you see in last 10 years, there is a huge rise among the atrocities.
Ours is the struggle of self-respect and dignity, also for the struggle of right to food, right to shelter, right to life. We must also take up the issues of health, education, unemployment, land reforms.
This is a titanic struggle.
It is, it's a gigantic task. It's never going to be easy. But I mean, what do I do about it? We have no option but to struggle.
With social media unifying Dalits around the nation, that struggle for equal rights has a new intensity. But for the Dalits, there are many hurdles on the path to abolishing caste division and ending centuries of discrimination.